Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next 30 minutes. The Arab Summit adopts Egyptian plan for Gaza, countering Trump's proposal for a Middle East Riviera in the enclave, calls on the international community and financial institutions for quick support. EU chief lays out a plan for mobilizing up to 800 billion euros for Europe's defense after Trump pauses all military aid to Ukraine. The Kremlin dubs the move best contribution to peace. Trump's 25% tariffs on Mexican and Canadian imports and 20% on Chinese imports takes effect. Over $1.3 trillion of annual trade to be hit. And Team Australia sets a target of 265 runs for India after getting all out in the Champions Trophy semi-final in Dubai. Well, first up, an Arab Summit draft communique on Tuesday adopted an Egyptian plan for Gaza's future and called on the international community and financial institutions to provide support for the plan quickly. The Arab initiative counters US President Donald Trump's controversial proposal to transform Gaza into a Middle East Riviera. And Israel on Tuesday signaled readiness to move to the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal, but stressed that an agreement on the release of hostages held by the Hamas is crucial to extend the framework. Speaking in Jerusalem, Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar said, and I quote, "We demand total demilitarization of Gaza, Hamas and Islamic Jihad out, and the return of our hostages. If they agree to that, we can implement it tomorrow." End quote.
The Foreign Minister Gideon Saar, and then we'll open it for questions.
We don't have an agreement on phase two. We demand total demilitarization of Gaza Strip, Hamas and Islamic Jihad out, and give us our hostages. If they agree to that, we can implement tomorrow. We will only have to then discuss the ratio for the terrorists that want to get out from our jails. Okay? It was not agreed in the agreement. It was left to be agreed on phase two. There is no shelf agreement on phase two. There's nothing in it.
And to that, Hamas leader Sami Abu Zuhri has said that disarming is a red line for his movement and other Palestinian militant groups in negotiations to extend the fragile Gaza ceasefire. US President Donald Trump's new 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada have taken effect on Tuesday, along with a doubling of duties on Chinese goods to 20%, launching a new trade conflict with the top 3 US trading partners. We get you details in our next report.
The gloves are off. After days of speculation in the US and hope across its northern and southern borders, US President Donald Trump is going ahead with his decision to impose sweeping 25% tariffs on Mexico and Canada with effect from Tuesday, March 4th.
Tariffs 25% on Canada and 25% on Mexico, and that'll start. So they're going to have a tariff. So what they have to do is build their car plants, frankly, and other things in the United States, in which case they have no tariffs.
The tariffs from China will also be levied from 4th March. However, in a show of defiance, Trump has doubled the rate from 10% announced initially to 20%. The tariffs are scheduled to take effect on Tuesday. Trump had initially planned to impose the tariffs at the beginning of February but delayed the move after Canada and Mexico agreed to take certain steps on border control. All 3 nations have threatened countermeasures.
Comunicación permanente.
Whatever their decision is, we will also make our decisions, and there is a plan and there is unity in Mexico. That strengthens us a lot.
Y vamos a esperar qué pasa.
Canada announced retaliatory tariffs in a statement from Prime Minister's office. Canada said it will start with 25% tariffs on US imports worth 30 billion Canadian dollars from Tuesday, and thereafter an additional $125 billion worth in 21 days. It added that Canada's tariffs will remain in place until the US trade action is withdrawn, and if it is not withdrawn, provinces and territories will pursue several non-tariff measures. China has already announced tariffs on energy imports from the US. As per China, it will play along to the end if US insists on tariff war.
If
the US truly wants to resolve the fentanyl issue, it should engage in consultations with China on the basis of equality, mutual respect, and reciprocity to address each other's concerns. However, if the US harbors ulterior motives and insists on waging a tariff war, trade war, or any other kind of war, China will play along to the end. We urge the US to abandon its bullying stance and return to the right track of dialogue and cooperation as soon as possible.
The European Union warned on Tuesday that US tariffs on Canada and Mexico threaten transatlantic economic stability and risk disrupting global trade, urging Washington to reverse course. The next in line of Trump's tariffs are those on steel and aluminium imports globally, which are set to start from March 12th. Countries that will be affected from March 12th decision have started reacting as well. South Korea's acting president Choi Sang-mok said on Tuesday that the government, parliament, and the private sector should be united to respond to the US trade war. Trump's recent imposition of sweeping tariffs aim to boost domestic manufacturing. That may or may not happen in the long term, but the short-term effects are already being felt in the way the decision has sent stock markets into a tailspin. After the initial jitters, no one wants to hazard a guess for how long it will take to calm the aftershocks. Bureau Report, TD India.
Now, Donald Trump's tariffs risk economic turmoil. Tariff war is expected to drive up prices for businesses and consumers, potentially impacting the American economy and global trade dynamics. Here's more.
As Trump's tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China start Tuesday, economists and experts warn that these levies will lead to higher consumer prices, slower economic growth, and reduced employment opportunities in US itself. US President Donald Trump's sweeping duties, particularly on Canada and Mexico, are set to snarl supply chains for key sectors like automobiles and construction materials, risking cost increases to households. Experts now estimate that these tariffs would cut US economic output by 0.1% each, even before considering potential foreign retaliation. Some even believe that US tariffs could reach their highest levels since 1936.
We could easily reach the highest effective tariff rate since 1936 by the beginning of 2026 if these are to be continued. In terms of the demand and the supply side effects, these are so large and so different, and they stack on top of each other. So there's a 25% tariff on steel, and then there's another 25% tariff on top of it for steel coming in from Canada. That's a lot. And all of that can't be passed on to consumers, even though historically most of the cost of tariffs was passed on to consumers. At some point in time, you've got the manufacturers actually bearing the cost as well.
The automobile sector in particular is likely to face headwinds. Trump's tariffs announcement sent shockwaves through Windsor, Ontario in Canada, which is home to more than 250,000 people and is a hub of Canada's auto industry. Residents feel betrayed as fears of closures of factories mount.
You see over 3,000 people in here, and currently all 3,000 of those people's jobs are up in the air and left at the fate of Donald Trump and his tariffs.
I don't know if Donald Trump understands that what it'll do in the United States. I know he's been told, but he is playing with people's livelihoods. He's playing with my members' livelihoods.
While the markets are already reacting negatively to the levies, it may be a while before the full impact is visible to the entire economy, and possible countermeasures from Mexico, Canada, and China may add to the misery on both sides of the border. Bureau Report, TD India.
And U.S. Treasury Secretary Bessent has indicated what Trump might be betting on, that especially the Chinese manufacturers will eat up the tariffs and not pass them on to consumers. Now, in a major development, U.S. President Trump has ordered a pause on U.S. military aid to Ukraine following a tense Oval Office meeting aiming to push Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky towards peace talks with Russia. The White House has announced a review and temporary pause on aid to ensure it supports a peaceful resolution. The pause has gone into effect immediately and impacts hundreds of millions of dollars of weaponry in the process of being sent to Ukraine. All U.S. military equipment not yet in Ukraine would be halted, including weapons en route by air or sea and those held in transit areas in Poland. Trump has directed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to implement the pause. U.S. assistance to Ukraine includes military aid, budgetary assistance, largely delivered through a World Bank Trust Fund, and other funds that had been delivered through the U.S. Agency for International Development, which has been throttled by the Trump White House. And as a reaction, the European Commission has proposed 150 billion euros in joint EU borrowings to provide defence loans to member states. The plan is part of a broader 800 billion euros financing effort aimed at strengthening Europe's defence capabilities. European leaders have agreed to increase defence spending to demonstrate that the continent can protect itself. The decision follows President Trump's decision to pause U.S. military aid to Ukraine.
We are in an era of rearmament, and Europe is ready to massively boost its defence spending, both to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
And Russia has said that the U.S. decision to pause military aid to Ukraine would be the best contribution to peace, but emphasized the need for more clarity on the move. The statement from Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov has come after Trump clashed with his Ukrainian counterpart Zelensky last week, leading to the halt in U.S. military assistance to Kyiv. And Trump has suggested that a deal allowing U.S. investment in Ukraine's minerals could still happen despite tensions with Kyiv. This comes as European leaders have proposed a truce in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. The Trump administration sees this deal as a way for the United States to earn back some of the billions of dollars given in aid to Ukraine. However, a recent Oval Office clash between Trump and Zelensky put the potential deal in jeopardy. Responding to a question on Monday, Trump hinted that the deal is not dead, describing it as a great deal for America. Further, he said that he would give an update on the situation on Tuesday night, also adding that Zelensky should be more appreciative of Washington's support.
What do you need to see from President Zelensky to restart these negotiations?
Well, I just think he should be more appreciative because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us because, as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
Since taking office in January, Donald Trump has upended U.S. policy on Ukraine and Russia, adopting a more conciliatory approach towards Moscow, leaving Ukraine and European allies wary. Now, Russia said on Tuesday that any normalization of relations with the United States would require Washington to lift sanctions against Moscow. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov made the remarks in response to a media report which claimed that the U.S. is working on a plan to potentially ease sanctions on Russia as part of President Trump's efforts to restore ties with Moscow and seek an end to the conflict with Ukraine.
It is probably too early to say anything. We haven't heard any official statements, but anyway, our attitude to the sanctions is well known. We consider them illegal. And of course, we talk about the normalizing of bilateral relations. Then they need to be freed from this negative burden of the so-called sanctions.
And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. India slams UN rights chief for unfounded and baseless comments on Kashmir and Manipur in his global update. Guyana's Prime Minister, Brigadier retired Mark Phillips, arrives in Delhi to attend the World Sustainable Development Summit 2025. And New Delhi hosts the 5th edition of BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry Women Empowerment Summit just ahead of International Women's Day.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, India on Monday slammed the United Nations Human Rights Chief Volker Turk for unfounded and baseless comments on Kashmir and Manipur in his global update. India's representative to the United Nations, Arindam Bagchi, stressed that Turk's comments did not reflect the ground realities of India. He also urged a better understanding of India's democratic and pluralistic ethos.
As India was mentioned by name, let me begin by emphasizing that the world's largest democracy continues to be a healthy, vibrant and pluralistic society. Unfounded and baseless comments in the update contrast jarringly with ground realities. The people of India have repeatedly proven wrong such misplaced concerns about us. We would urge a better understanding of India and our civilization ethos of diversity and openness, which continue to define our robust and often cacophonous civic space. Nothing illustrates this divergence more than the passing reference to Jammu and Kashmir, erroneously referred to as Kashmir, ironically in a year that stood out for that region's improving peace and inclusive progress, be it the large turnout provincial elections, the booming tourism, or the rapid development pace. Clearly, the global update needs a genuine update.
Guyana's Prime Minister, Brigadier retired Mark Phillips, arrived in Delhi on Tuesday to attend the World Sustainable Development Summit 2025. India's External Affairs Ministry spokesperson Randhir Jaiswal said that the Guyana PM's visit to India will add further momentum to the strong and growing multifaceted relationship between the two nations. The World Sustainable Development Summit will be held from the 5th to the 7th of this month with the theme Partnerships for Accelerating Sustainable Development and Climate Solutions. Princess Astrid of Belgium is on a week-long visit to India. She held talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Tuesday. DD India's Jessica Taneja spoke exclusively to Belgium's Foreign Minister Maxime Prévost. Take a look.
We have with us the Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium and also the Foreign Affairs Minister Maxime Prévost. Thank you for speaking to the public broadcast Doordarshan network. Question to you, and keep it brief. The current state of transatlantic partnerships and the relationships that we are witnessing right now, how important is India a partner when it comes to not just geopolitics but also geoeconomics, enhancing trade ties along with defense ties? As you say, a huge delegation was, has been visiting India from your end. How important is this?
You know, Her Royal Highness the Princess Astrid, who is representing our King of Belgium, is leading a delegation of 330 people with nearly 200 companies. So it's not only how to improve the business between India and Belgium, it's also how to reinforce the government-to-government relationships. They are also already important, but we will to enhance them in the geopolitical context that we face. Maybe you ignore it, but it's important to underline it, that Belgium is in the top 5 of the European countries which invest in India. We were last year the 3rd European country. We also are alone. Belgium represents 10% of the share of the trade exchanges between Europe and India. So we are a small country, certainly compared to India, but with strong assets, certainly in the sectors of defense, life science, space, healthcare, pharma, for instance. It means that all those sectors are also very strategic for the development in India. And so I'm sure that that's assets from Belgium, which can be aligned with the Viksit Bharat approach of the Indian government. So if we can have a win-win partnership, which will be stronger tomorrow than it was by the past, it will be a good operation with added value for both populations.
Just very quickly, how has your experience been so far in India, and what are your big takeaways that you're going to go home with?
They're very positive, but to be honest, it's impressive. When we have a look on the way the government is pushing the digitalization of the civil society, when we have a look on the investment on infrastructure, which are very key and strategic for the competition of a country in order to create ties between big cities but also the countryside. When we have a look on the way the government directly supports the healthcare costs of its population, it's really a source of inspiration, and so it's why it's so important for Belgium to have a strong partnership with India.
Thank you for speaking to us and appreciate you taking out on. That was Deputy Prime Minister of Belgium and the Foreign Minister telling us that his visit remains impressive and there's a lot in terms of takeaways he would be going back home with, especially when it comes to trade ties and also laying the framework for a defense partnership, also the two armies potentially looking to train together in the future, if that is one to be explored. This is Jessica Taneja with video journalist Piyush for DD India in New Delhi.
New Delhi hosted the 5th BRICS edition of the BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry Women Empowerment Summit on Tuesday, just days ahead of the International Women's Day on the 8th of this month. The program felicitated outstanding contributions of women in business, entrepreneurship and leadership across BRICS and beyond. Veteran leader Kiran Bedi was awarded Lifetime Achievement Award. Women leaders from India and the world congregated for the summit. It serves as a catalyst for global dialogue, innovation and collaboration. Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta was the chief guest at the program. Nepal's parliament passed the Electronic Commerce Bill, giving confidence to consumers and creating a legal framework for regulating the country's online trade. The bill proposes fines between Nepalese rupees 300,000 to 500,000 along with jail terms of up to 3 years or both, depending on the severity of the offence. The Nepalese government moved to enact the bill decades after e-commerce began in the Himalayan nation. The draft bill was prepared in 2021 but was stalled due to frequent government changes. The bill was registered in the National Assembly, the upper house, in July 2023. According to the amended bill, micro and cottage entrepreneurs can also sell their goods and services using online platforms. Time now to talk about sports and cricket first. Australia have posted 264 runs against India in the first semi-final of the Champions Trophy in Dubai on Tuesday. Indian bowlers took wickets at regular intervals to prevent Australia from posting a big total after captain Steve Smith won the toss and opted to bat. Mohammad Shami drew the first blood when he dismissed Cooper Connolly in the third over, while Travis Head became the victim of Varun Chakravarti in the ninth over. Head had scored a quick-fire 39. Steve Smith was the top scorer with 73 runs. He stitched a useful partnerships with Marcus Labuschagne and Alex Carey. Mohammad Shami was the pick of the bowlers with 3 scalps, while Ravindra Jadeja and Varun Chakravarti took 2 wickets each. India's chase of 265 is still to begin. And football now. Arsenal face PSV Eindhoven in the first leg of the last 16 match of the Champions League on Tuesday. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta believes his injury-ravaged side can still hope for Champions League glory. Arsenal's lack of firepower is understandable, with Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus, Bukayo Saka and Gabriel Martinelli sidelined by injury. Arsenal can at least lean on their defence, which is one of the best in the Champions League this season. PSV have hardly been in great form themselves either, with 1 win in their last 7 Eredivisie games. Arsenal played PSV twice in the group stages last season, winning 4-0 at home and drawing 1-1 away. And that's all we have for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. You can scan the QR code and download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.